Right. First of all, I would like to thank the Rotaract clubs of these schools, a couple of schools working together and inviting me, first of all. Thank you very much for considering me and giving me this opportunity. It's something I like doing, like, talking to the younger generations, because I see that the younger generations always have the passion to do something to change the world. And of course, the younger generations, they are yet to walk into the society and take the country to their hands, right? So they are the ones who will be taking over the country in the future and talking every single word that you talk with the younger generation, and every time you sort of try to give a little bit of positivity toward the younger generations, that's an investment. So this is something that I enjoy doing, right? So if I tell you a little bit about myself, I'm an attorney in my profession, and I am also a teacher as well as a debating coach, right? So when I was invited for this program that says Fault in Our System, right, and I was expected to discuss about what sort of faults we have. So to begin with, now we live in Sri Lanka, and I believe all of you all are, mostly all of you are in your late teen years. So you all are grown enough to know that we live in a third world country, Sri Lanka. It's a beautiful country with a lot of resources, right? But no one's necessarily taking proper use of them. And in terms of politics and all, that we are a little behind from the rest of the world. So when we discuss about the fault in our system, there are so many faults we can talk about. Okay, but given that I have like 45 minutes of time, I'm not going to discuss about everything. Given that I am coming from a legal background and a political science background, I believe when I was invited by Interact clubs of these few schools, they expected me to focus on the legal aspect or the political science aspect. Now, I'd like to talk about both, but I'd rather focus on one area and thoroughly talk about what's happening in these areas, right? So let's talk about politics in Sri Lanka. Right? Legal system is more technical. I think the political side would be more interesting and more relatable to all of you all to have an idea about what's going on, right? So when we look at Sri Lankan politics, okay, when we look at Sri Lankan politics, how messed up it is pretty messed up. Like speaking your language, you younger guys, like, talk about, say messed up, right? So it's a mess. Sri Lankan politics is a mess. So much so is people call it a mud pit. I don't blame people for saying that, right? You get involved in politics, you get mud all over you. That's how the normal saying goes. Now, why do we say that? Now, even if you came across the flyer for this event, right, for this webinar particularly, and that message that the small intro that you received with the Zoom link that says a couple of decades ago that things were a little better. And we have sort of gone down, like when we received independence from the British Empire, that we were at a better place. And we've sort of like gone downhill since 1947. And what sort of led us there? Now, as I told you before, I myself, I'm a political science teacher. And I remember there's this experience that I share with a lot of people. There was this father who called me. And he said that his daughter wants to do political science for A-levels. She was like a post-O-level student and choosing the subjects to do her A-levels in the art stream, and she wanted to do political science. And this father is telling me that, now I'm calling you because I'm looking for a political science class for my daughter. But I am completely against her studying political science. I'm completely against her doing political science. I'm just calling because she's so insistent on doing this subject. And I was like, why are you against that decision? Then he was like, because Sri Lankan politics is so messed up, and it's very much like it's well corrupted, very well corrupted, and like it's not a good place for a decent girl or even a decent boy for that matter. He said, I don't want my daughter getting into politics. But of course, politics and political science are the same thing. And I clarified it to him, saying that your daughter wants to study political science. That doesn't necessarily mean she wants to get to politics. But I agreed with one point he brought up, that politics is pretty bad in Sri Lanka. Right? So what went wrong? What went wrong? First of all, we need to understand the fact that in Sri Lanka, we have a lot of good political features. But the problem with Sri Lanka is that even when you have a good political feature, in application in Sri Lankan politics, it turns bad. Now, for example, if you take the political party system of Sri Lanka has an excellent political party system. Sri Lanka has a multi-party system. There are so many political parties. But the problem is, as I told you before also, in terms of Sri Lankan politics, even when we have something positive, as Sri Lankans, we find a way to make it negative and get like bad outcomes out of it. Okay, this is a problem we have. So, in terms of political parties, what is the problem we have? Now, first of all, what is a political party? A political party is a group of people who's pursuing power. They are there to contest in elections and win elections and form governments and take over the control of the government. Okay. The problem with Sri Lankan political parties is the misconception of loyalty. Now, being loyal to a political party is only applicable to members of that political party. Right? People who vote for that political party do not have to have loyalty. Right? Now, if you take other countries, if you take Western countries, like European countries, in these countries, people who vote, people who are not members of political parties, people who are voting on a daily basis, they decide which candidate, which political party they should vote according to the situation, right? Because the same political party may put a good candidate this year, but in the next election, they may put a bad candidate, right? So, depending on who the person comes from that political party, they decide whether to vote for that party or not. It's very difficult in a Western country to find a person who has voted towards the same party all his or her life. This is because that every political party doesn't do good all the time. There are bad times, there are bad candidates. So depending on the necessity of the country, depending on who is running, they choose whom to vote. But if you are a member of a political party, you are a member of that political party. That means that then you need to be loyal because you are a part of that political party. So the politicians in these countries, politicians, right? Politicians happen to stay loyal to the party that they are members of. Okay. So if I am a member of a certain political party, let's say there is a political party called Y or X, right? And since I'm a member there, I'm supposed to be following whatever the party decisions they make. I'm a part of it. So I have a collective responsibility with the other members to follow the party, what they do, right? So I am supposed to be a loyal follower of that party. But the people who are voting for our party, they are not members, they are not bound by anything. So they will vote for us only if we have a good program, good projects, if we have a good agenda for the country, then only. Okay. Now, unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, it is happening the other way around. This is quite unfortunate. And when you think about it, it's actually weird also. Because in Sri Lanka, like, hear me out, this is something that you have known all your life, but you never thought about this way. In Sri Lanka, members of political parties do not stay loyal to their parties. They change their political party. This election, you are in one political party, you are praising this particular person, and in the next election, you jump to the other side and you start attacking the person you've been defending all this time, right? Like, let's take real life examples. All right. So if you take someone like the Rajapakshas, the Mahinda Rajapaksa or Gotabaya Rajapaksa, right? Let's say one time you are a member of that party. And that means that if you are a member of that party, you're supposed to be loyal to that person, right? So, and you just praising, keep praising that person, and you get votes and all that. And the next election, you jump to the other side, and all of a sudden, that person is a bad person. You start attacking that person. So in Sri Lanka, the members of political parties aren't loyal. They just switch parties like nothing. Right? Now, I was watching this YouTube video, like this channel that makes top 10 videos, like they make political videos also. There was one particular video that top 10 traitors, okay, top 10 traitors. There was a top 10 video. So obviously you can understand number one went to Judas, who betrayed Jesus, and number two went to Brutus, who betrayed Julius Caesar. So you can see the level of like betraying we are talking about, like the level of traitors we are talking about. So in that number 10 happened to be some senator from the USA. I was wondering why this person made to this. I didn't know this person before. It turned out to be this person happened to be a member of the Democratic Party. Back in the time, I think they had President Obama at the time I saw this video, right, 2014. So he happened to be a member of the Democratic Party all this time, right? And then when Obama was running for the election in 2012, he has said he is supporting the Republican Party candidate. So he had been a member of the Democratic Party for 30 years. After that, he has said, in this election, I've decided to support the Republican Party candidate. So he was chosen to the top 10 biggest traitors in the world. So obviously, this YouTube channel has no idea how Sri Lankan politics work. Because you see, like today, someone with one party, and the next day, how they jump to the other party. So members of political parties, they switch sides. And often for benefits, often to get a minister position, often that where they can steal, right? It's about stealing money and power and corruption. That's why they switch sides. Okay. As I told you, in other countries, members of political parties don't switch sides. But this is not the worst part of this element, of this story. The problem with is the general public. Now, as I told you, in other countries, general public aren't loyal to political parties. If you are a citizen, you don't have to be loyal to a particular political party, right? You don't have to be loyal to a particular political party. You are a free thinking voter. You can vote to whoever. That I can vote to someone this year and I can vote to the other person next year. I'm not betraying anyone. I'm not a member of a certain political party, right? So in other countries, people don't keep voting for the same party because they are not affiliated to that party. But in Sri Lanka, the problem is people are dead loyal to their parties, which makes no sense because you ask people, they'll be like, ever since I was like, ever since like 1960, I've been voting for this party only. Even if you kill me, I will vote for this party. If they say that even if you cut me, you will see blood coming from this particular color. Like they say like it's blue or green to represent their political parties. Like if you cut me, you will see my blood is green. If you cut me, you will see my blood is blue, right? So they try to say that even if you kill, I will never vote outside my party. So these people aren't members of these parties. These people are not connected to politics. They are just voters, right? So irrespective of whether this particular party puts a good candidate or a bad candidate, they keep voting for this party. In fact, if you change who you are voting for, that is considered like bad in the general Sri Lankan circumstances. People take pride in the fact that they've always been voting for a particular party. People take pride in the fact that they've been voting for a particular party since generations. Like, my grandfather voted for this party. My father voted for this party. I am voting for this party. My son will be voting for this party. Why? Makes no sense. You're a voter. You're supposed to be voting to the right candidate, not to a particular party. So it is really ironic how people who should be loyal to their parties, like the followers, the members of political parties, are actually not loyal. And like people who are voting, who doesn't have to be loyal, who should be thinking according to the right time and vote according to the situation, are following this false sense of loyalty, right? It just, I think, something that we have in our country that especially like South Asians, especially South Asian, this Indian subcontinent, Asians and specifically South Asians, we sort of have this, like, we are coming from a long line of caste systems. We used to have caste systems back in the day where some castes were higher, some castes were lower and all that. And now the caste thing is not there anymore. It's just we tend to be superior to the others by, like, being in a party and saying, okay, you all are in that party, we are in this party, we are better. So people tend to get that, right? People tend to get that sort of an edge over the other people. But what's happening is that you're missing out on your duty. As voters, your duty is to choose the correct candidate. And the political party system has sort of given a false sense of loyalty where people are following. And sometimes even if a political party has put like a really bad candidate, they are still voting for that person simply because, like, that's the party they've been voting for generations. And this is one of the reasons that countries like Sri Lanka are getting wrong governments over and over again, while Western countries seem to be going ahead with like good governments, good proper governments, right? Because they are not sticking to a particular party. They are voting according to the situation, what the country needs. And that is very unlikely, because in Sri Lanka, we have about 15% of the people who think according to that, because you see that the 85% of the people have been divided between two parties, right? And it's just the 15% of the people who think according to the situation and they change who they are voting for. In fact, if you say out in the public, especially in a Facebook, like, on a website, like on a social media platform like Facebook, if you go put a post saying, I voted for this person last year, I'm voting for this person this year, people come and attack you saying, like, what sort of a person are you? Like, are you changing parties? Right? I've been voting for this party since like 1980. The people take pride in the fact that you've been blindly making decisions based on your favorite political party, irrespective of what happens to the country. And you get attacked for changing who you are voting for according to what the country is requesting. Okay, that's one problem. Secondly, there is another problem that people sort of finding, some people, this happens with the younger generation. I think that the problem I explained to you before, this exists with the older generation, like, sticking to parties, being so like blindly loyal to parties and all that. I think with the younger generation, the problem is thinking that liking politics is sort of like, what do you call that? It sort of affects your personality. They think that not caring one bit about politics is cool, right? So people tend to think, oh, I don't care about politics. I don't want to talk about politics. So please don't talk about politics. No. So they think that not liking politics and just following pop culture and stuff, that is cool. But there is a problem, because after the age of 18, you are a decision maker of the country, right? And you are not using your vote to decide the outcome and the direction of the country. And you sort of think that going out and voting and sort of like having any interest about politics is not cool. That's sort of affecting your cool personality. Yeah? That is another problem. If you are an adult, right? If you are living in a certain country, if you are taking whatever the government services that are giving you, right? You have responsibility to choose the government by casting your vote. You have responsibility to do that. Now, countries like Australia are very strict on that. You are supposed to cast your vote. If not, you have to pay a fine. Even if you're going abroad, you have to cast your vote and go, or else you have to cast your vote in the High Commissioner's office, Australian High Commissioner's office in whatever the country you are in. They are very particular with that. And that's something good. Because if you're an adult, you should be making decisions about the government. Not liking politics is not cool, right? That just simply shows that you are, right, not smart enough. I don't want to say dumb, right? But because this is a professional webinar, I would say that shows that you are not smart. That shows your brain capacity. If you say, like, I don't care about politics because politics doesn't, politics don't apply to me. No, politics do apply to you, right? You get down to the road and you travel, right? You go out to a food city and you buy some snacks. Whatever the price you pay depends on the taxes the government puts on you, right? Whether, like, whether your father can put father or mother can put food on the table depends on what sort of government you have, right? So even if you are like just scrolling your smartphone all day without doing any actual work, even if you have that sort of a lifestyle, still the government you have in this country has an impact on you, right? So it's not cool to like not to care about politics. You should care about politics. You should care about what's happening. You should give your contribution to choose the right government for the country. So I think now, since we are talking about how to sort of fix Sri Lanka, to fix the faults, fix the faults in our system. Now we already diagnosed two with the older generations, them blindly following political leaders and political parties, with the younger generations thinking that they don't, not caring about politics is nice. It's not, right? So older generations should think a little logical when they are making their political decisions, and the younger generation should contribute more if you want these political systems, the faults, to be diagnosed and to be fixed, right? So that's one thing. And also there is another problem about the decision making, right? Now, if I ask you a question, if you have a stomach ache, right? Or if you sprain your ankle, you have to go see a doctor, right? You have to go see a doctor, right? So when you're channeling a doctor, let's say you and your mom, like you all are channeling a doctor through e-channeling in your website, right? Do you check the doctor's name? And do you check whether that doctor is married? Whether that doctor has a good character? Whether that doctor looks nice? Whether that doctor gives away stuff for charity, right? Or like, will you go channel a doctor simply because that doctor has given you like a set of books, like your book list when the school is about to start, right? Or a school bag, or like one meal. It was like, this person came and gave us a free meal, we should channel this doctor. No. If you want to fix your car, when you are choosing a garage, do you check what sort of a character the owner of the garage or the mechanic has? Would you give your car to a mechanic because the mechanic has given you free stuff at one point? No, right? If you want to choose a plumber, you choose a good plumber. If you want to choose a mechanic, you choose a good mechanic. If you want to choose a chef, you choose someone who's a good chef who can cook well. So basically looking at someone who is good for that job, right? Now, if I tell you in Sri Lanka, for every job, we choose someone who can do that job well. If you are choosing a cricketer, you are trying to choose people who can play cricket well. If you are choosing a doctor, someone who can do medicine well. If you are choosing an engineer, someone who can do the construction well. But there is one job that people are looking at everything except whether they can do that job. And that's politicians. When you are choosing the government, when you are choosing your government, people care about everything except the fact that people don't care whether these people are capable of making laws. Instead, they're like, does this person have good character? Is this person happily married? Is this person straight, right? Or not straight? Or is this person does this person give away free stuff? Or like, he has given us, like he has given my child like all these books for my child's school, so I'm going to vote for him. This is how the thinking pattern works. You go to one of these areas and you give away free stuff, and all those people vote for you. If you have a good character, if you are like happily married, and like if you happen to be like good looking, right, your personality or those things, again, then they come and vote for you. They don't take into consideration whether you are capable of making laws, because you are choosing a government, and a government is there to make laws. So we saw, because of these certain people going into the parliament, the lawmaking place, that's the place you make laws. We saw certain people going to these places who did not even know what the constitution was. People who were unable to make a speech in the parliament. People who had no idea what parliaments do, right? It's like, we get to choose doctors, and you choose certain people to be doctors simply because they come and give you free stuff, and they go to the hospital and they don't know what a stethoscope is, or they don't know like what a thermometer is, right? They don't know what paracetamol is, something like that. There's another problem. People are looking at all the wrong aspects when they are choosing governments. Right? All this because of political parties. So people vote either because they are loyal to a certain political party, or because they are sort of like mesmerized by everything else other than the person's capability to do the job, right? This is another fault in our system, as our topic suggests, right? Another thing, right? So I personally believe this is something I personally believe. I'm writing a book these days. I had to keep it on hold because of my other work, like I'm doing some exams these days. I'm actually writing a book about like how to protect democracy, and like, in fact, because this is why I like when you all invited me for this. I was also working on writing a book about like how to fix these political faults in Sri Lanka. I personally think that if you want to run for the parliament, right, for a parliamentary seat, if you're running an election, you should do an exam first, like an entrance exam, where they ask like, what is the parliament? What does the parliament do? What is the constitution? How do you make laws? Right, to check whether you have the basic requirement. In fact, I personally think even when it comes to voting, I think people should do a paper before being able to vote, right? Because just because you are 18, you don't get to drive, right? You have to show that you are capable of driving, then only they give you your driver's license, right? So you have to prove to the government that you are capable of making sound decisions with your vote, right? Then people can, go and vote. Because why don't you get license just because you are an adult, you are 18 years old? Because if you are driving a vehicle like a maniac, you are putting so many people's lives at risk if you can't drive. Which is why they say, show us that you can drive, then we'll give you the license. So even voting is like that. When you are voting, if you are not capable of making sound decisions in voting, technically you are driving the country like a maniac and putting people under like, danger. Okay. Now think about this. Why is it important for people to know how lawmaking works and to have like a political knowledge? You see, everyone's capable of voting, right? People are capable of voting. Now, what does that mean? Let's do this. Think about the dumbest person you can think of. I'm certain we all know, like maybe there is someone you personally know. Maybe it is a celebrity or someone you see on TikTok. Think about someone like who's like really dumb. I know this is a professional webinar, but of course, given that you all are young, trying to just speak your language, right? Think about someone really dumb. Do you have that person in your mind? Someone who makes like really lame TikToks, but who's still an adult, Do you realize this person you have in your mind right now, this celebrity or your friend, the person you happen to know, this TikTok star, whoever, like who happen to be so dumb, who has no idea about how politics work, is also capable of voting? That person has a right to vote, right? So if in any case, Sri Lanka has an election where there are two candidates, one of them is like really good, other one is like bad, really bad, right? Highly unlikely, but imagine something like, normally we have two bad candidates, we just have to choose which one is less harmful. But imagine a situation where you have actually a good candidate who can actually bring Sri Lanka up, and there's another candidate who will like really bury Sri Lanka down, like completely bury Sri Lanka out, like, whatever we have remaining will be gone with that person. Imagine there is a tie between these two people because of the vote, and this dumb person you are thinking of has the ability to decide the fate of the country. Depends on who this person votes. The destiny of the country will be decided. Imagine this person sort of thinking, this person is wearing a nice shirt, I like the color, so I'm going to vote for this person. Imagine, because there can be a person who votes because of the shirt the person is wearing. This shows how important the political knowledge is, right? So we have to make sure that the older generations have the proper political knowledge as to vote for who's necessary, right? Who is eligible to do the job as a lawmaker. That's one. And we have to make sure the younger generations also have the political knowledge enough, first, to make sure that they come and actually cast their votes and like contribute to the governance. And secondly, to have adequate political knowledge to choose the right person to vote. Right? This is one of the reasons that Sri Lanka is doing bad compared to certain developed countries in the world. How we are making wrong decisions in politics. Right? One of the reasons we are behind. And again, to phrase our title today, one of the faults in our system. So if we want to fix it, we have to make sure we give the right political knowledge to people. Right? Now, a lot of people like say things about like, you know, TikTok and all these social media and all that. I'm not necessarily like, you know, against any of those, because I spend a lot of time with your generation, because I teach your generation. I spend a lot of time with your generation, and most of y'all are like, you know, not like, you know, not less smart as the older generation normally suggests. Like, you know, they attack the younger generation, saying people who are born after 2000 are silly and all that. Well, not really. It just, they come across like one person sharing like a lame TikTok video and like everyone sharing that and saying, okay, see, everyone born after 2000, they are like silly and all that. Well, not really. I spend a lot of time with your generation. I know that you all are actually smart. In fact, given that you all are the generation who grew into the internet. Like I was born in 91, so I'm a 90s child. So the 90s generation, especially the ones who were born in early 90s, we were the generation, the only generation to sort of like have the life before internet and after internet, right? Because like we remember the times that how internet wasn't there, and we were also the generation who's familiar with all the social media sites and all that, because the generation above us, they are not very fluent with how the internet and social media works. And the generation below us, they don't exactly know how things worked before smartphones and internet came. So we are from that generation that we remember how things were before the internet came, and we are fluent with how the internet works, reasonably fluent. Maybe not exactly as you all are, but somewhat we have an idea. So we have the privilege of making the comparison. So back in our day, we had a generation who had the brain capacity, but the access to information was very less. Back in the day, you had to go through books and papers and all that, but now everything is just one Google search away. So because of that, I see younger generations knowing a lot of stuff. So even these websites like websites like YouTube, Wikipedia, and them, and social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, I see even like political stuff being shared in these. Of course, like there are like silly stuff, lame stuff. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's a part of the world. But of course, I like how younger generations get to know a lot of things, right? And they know how politics work. They have an idea about how politics work in the country, and that is definitely a positive sign. And of course, like Interact Clubs sort of working on these kind of projects, that shows that you all are interested in gaining the knowledge that we have. You all want our knowledge, and that's something I appreciate, right? Then, since we talked about how political parties and elections work, right? I'll talk about another aspect. This is not that vast as the previous one we discussed. How the public sector works. Now, what is the public sector? What is a public sector? Government jobs, right? In political science, we call this the permanent executive. The part that is there to carry out the duties of the government. Okay. If I explain it to you in like very simple terms, why do we have a government? Now, if I basically explain how a government works with political science terms, the government has a part called the executive. The executive means the decision makers, president, prime minister, and the ministers, right? Keep in mind, everyone in the parliament are not ministers. Okay, only some of them are ministers. Ministers are chosen. In other words, the parliament is like the school, ministers are like the prefects. You see, only some, and they have special powers. So that's the executive, and the legislature is the parliament. So how lawmaking normally works is, executive makes decisions, prime minister, president, and the ministers, they get together, make decisions, and they ask the parliament, is it okay if we do this? Parliament have a vote, right? Parliament members in the parliament, they have a vote, and they approve the decision, Once it is approved, it becomes a law. So this is a lawmaking process. Okay. Now, sometimes the government makes decisions to implement certain things. For example, like vaccination. So Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa, and the other ministers are executive. They decided to give the vaccine to the Sri Lankan population, and the parliament agreed. Hence, it is going to be carried out. But you keep in mind, now Gotabaya Rajapaksa can't walk from house to house and give everyone vaccines, right? Although it was him who made the decision. Somebody has to carry that out. And that's when you have the permanent executive coming in, the government sector. That is the workforce of the government. When the government makes a decision, they are the ones who are carrying that out. Government decides, let's give vaccines. Government workers will come, the Gram Niladhari people, government hospital doctors, teachers, divisional secretariat people who are working in ministries. These people will be carrying out what the government decided, what the executive decided. Understand? So that's the permanent executive. Or in other words, that's the public sector. Okay, so public sector means a government workforce. Now keep in mind, the public sector, this permanent executive is there to carry out the duties of the government. Okay. But in Sri Lanka, the problem is, this is something that is taken for granted. Now you see, Sri Lanka is the only country, keep this in mind, it's a very important fact. Okay, keep this in mind. This is something that you can show off to your friends, that like, you know, this is like one of those surprising facts about Sri Lanka. That's something you can show off. Knowing this, right, is going to be important for you. Sri Lanka is the only country in the world, only country. There are like more than 200 countries in the world. Sri Lanka is the only country where you will have 100% free education and 100% free healthcare. The only country in the world, right? There are countries that gives you free healthcare. Example, Canada. In Canada, you get free healthcare, but not free education. You go to Germany, you get free education, but not free healthcare. Sri Lanka is the only country that gives 100% free healthcare and 100% free education. In Sri Lanka, you can go to government hospitals and get treatment for free, and you can attend a government school without paying tuition fees. Okay, school fees. All right. So it's not easy to carry out these duties. Now, as I told you again, the government has decided to give us free education, and the president can't be walking from school to school and teach, which is why they need a workforce. That's why they have recruited teachers. President can't walk from house to house and give healthcare, which is why they've established government hospitals and there are doctors, right? So people who are getting a salary from the government, this is the public sector. But the problem in Sri Lanka is this government sector is highly inefficient. It is so inefficient. Now, since these people are working for the government has to follow certain ethical guidelines, not like the private sector. If you are working for a private sector that is owned by a person, right? That company can fire you. That company can just fire you. You don't behave the way they're asking you to behave, they can fire you. They say, okay, you are fired. That's it. You just pack your boxes and just go. Just put all your pens and whatever to the box, and you've seen in movies how people get fired and how they move out of office spaces. Now, in the government jobs, you get the privilege that you are given an assurance that you can't be fired like that. Okay. So that's supposed to be good, right? So government workers, they are serving the people of the country. They are carrying out the duties of the government, taking care of the people of the country. So the fact that they can't be fired like that is something good, right? But as I mentioned in the beginning of this webinar, Sri Lankans find a way to make every positive thing negative. So that this security, job security government people have, they have taken it for granted, and they have turned into extremely inefficient people. Okay, because in the private sector, if you are doing a job and you become so inefficient, they fire you, as I told you, right? But in the government sector, even if you are inefficient, they can't fire you. So you take that for granted and you just act inefficient. Okay, that's one. Secondly, the corruption these government institutes have, right? The level of stealing that's going on in this government, especially these ministers and people who are working for ministers, people who are working for politicians, they get ministry jobs specifically just to steal, right? They say like, we are passing like 100 million rupees for you all to go fix these roads, right? And they actually build it with 75 million and they steal the 25 million, the remaining 25 million. Okay. Now, I'm not going to mention any governments, but I'll just anonymously mention like certain stealing that have been done in government. You can understand how bad this is, right? Do you guys know Thalakerali? I don't know what to say that in English. Like, those sesame seed that is like, mixed with like honey and that, surrounded, like you put a small piece of jagannath in the middle, like it's like a toffee. It's basically a toffee, right? So Thalakerali is like what, 4 rupees? Now it's 4 rupees, right? But back in the day, a couple of years back, one of the governmental institutes had organized an event and they had bought these Thalakerali, these toffees for the participants to give them after lunch, right? So it's a toffee, which is around 3 to 4 rupees. They had billed 400 rupees for each toffee. The budget, now most of you all are interact people, so you all know how you all make a budget, right? With like, bills and all that, how you all handle a budget. Okay, so you all put certain money, like amount of money to lunch. So these people are also putting money for lunch. And for that toffee that they gave after lunch, each toffee was billed for 400 rupees. And they got a fake bill that said each toffee was 400 rupees. Obviously, it was like, even now it's like 4 rupees. Back in the day, it was like 2 rupees. So obviously they stole the rest of the money, right? You just buy those toffees and you bill 400, and the rest of the money goes somewhere else. Also, another incident, like they were buying one of those carom boards, so one of these ministry canteens, right? Gyms, ministry gyms, right? So how much is one of these, like one of the carom boards? What do you think? It's around 7,000, 8,000 rupees, like a carom board, right? This carom board, they build it 37 lakhs. They bought a carom board for 37 lakhs. One of the ministries in Sri Lanka. Okay. So obviously, they stole the money, right? Some people get the wrong idea that they got like a gold-plated carom board or something like that. No. It's a normal carom board. He took 37 lakhs, 38 lakhs, right? 3.8 million lakhs to buy a carom board, and he bought a 7,000 rupee carom board, and he took the rest of the money. Right? Even these roads, right? Even when the highways are built, 1 kilometer could be built with 33 million, but like they bill like 100 million. The remaining money is stolen. Right? So this is not necessarily just pointing fingers at one particular government. This had been going on all this time. As our introduction suggested in the beginning, at the beginning, right after independence, people had a little bit of discipline. They were like, I don't want to steal. It looks bad. It came to a point that you started stealing little by little. They were like, okay, if you are spending 100 rupees, let's steal 10, like an amount people won't see. And it came so bad, it went to a point that you would just, without any hesitant, you would bill 38 lakhs for a carom board. Or I just billing 3 times as what it would actually cost to build the road, right? So like stealing 67% of the amount and just putting 33% to do the actual work. It came to a point like that, right? And it's corruption. So from the top layers of the government sector, there is so much corruption going on. And as I told you before, coming back to the previous point, knowing that their government steal, people be like, you know what, I'm still going to vote for them. I know they have stolen, but I'm still going to vote for them because this is the party that I've been voting for ever since. Like even my grandfather voted, my father voted, I am also voting. So even when you tell them that, these people have stolen, they deny. They don't want to accept because they sort of worship these political leaders in their hearts. They don't want to admit. Meanwhile, they're attacking the other party so much, right? Once I saw in one of these programs, one of the party people was like accusing the other party person, saying, when y'all had the government, Sri Lanka imported tons and tons of cocaine and heroin. Right? And his supporters were like applauding. right? And then one of the media people asked, wait, this person accused this person of like their government brought tons and tons of heroin, drugs. And why are you applauding? Is it like, are you happy when your enemy brings in heroin so that you have something to accuse them? Do you not realize that that heroin is going to the younger generations of Sri Lanka and killing the generations of Sri Lanka? That's how it works. Even if the country is ruined, destroyed, as long as the ruining comes from the other party, people are happy because that you have something to scold the other party. So the political party system has deteriorated up to that level that you have a party government that you don't like, you want the country to do bad, you want the economy to go bad, you want the drugs to come because that's not the person that you preferred, right? And when you have the person you preferred as the government, whatever happens, you are defending that person, right? This is the fault in our system. Speaking of like the political parties and the public sector, right? In the public sector that we have that inefficiency, we have that corruption, and people are not doing anything. Even when it comes to the general public, the problem is that this public sector thing is just a privilege, right? When you are going for a wedding proposal, the first thing you put is, I am government employee. That's the first thing you put, like Mangala Yojana kila danakota, right? You put wedding proposals in newspapers. When you're looking for a bride or a groom, you put, I'm 34 and I'm government employee. You're just showing off that I have job security, right? So it has become something that I am working for the government. I won't get fired, so I am eligible for marriage. That's what they're pointing. No one is thinking, okay, I am working for the government, I have a duty to serve the people. That doesn't work, right? So even when certain political parties come to power and they try to make the government sector more efficient, the government sector people itself protest and they go for strikes and all that, and they make sure those amendments don't go through. Why? Because these people are so used to the system. They are doing a job in the government, has given them a privilege, and they are not working, and they can't get penalized for not working. And they don't want the system change. And the politicians don't want the system to change, where people are blindly voting, right? So what we are doing right now, this webinar we are doing right now, what we are doing right now, this is basically going against a lot of people in this country. As I mentioned, Sri Lanka's system is flawed. There are faults in our system, as the topic suggests. But there are so many people who benefit from those flaws while the country is doing bad, right? So what we are doing here is something that is not wanted by political parties and the government people. They don't want these flaws to be fixed. They want these flaws to continue so that they can continue taking privileges. They can continue stealing. They will continue getting power, right? Do you think that my suggestion of like people having to do an exam before voting, or politicians having to do an exam before coming to elections, is going to go through any government that easily? No, because they don't want people to be politically aware. They like when people blindly vote for them. They prefer that, right? Which is why it is important to address the younger generations. So at least when, I don't know, 48 people, except for myself, there are 47 young people here listening to me right now, at least the 47 of you, when you all go to the society, when you all are adults, when you all are making political decisions, you all will make sound decisions, right? And we have to start small. We have to identify where the problem is, right? And we have to take small steps, especially with the younger generations. So because of that, I really appreciate the Interact Club of these few schools for arranging this and allowing me this opportunity to talk to you all. Right? I hope you all learned something. Right? I hope you weren't too bored. So if there are any questions, I can take a couple of minutes to answer a few questions. One of the hosts can take over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gimhan, for your insights. It truly showed us a new perspective on what politics and how we are basically affected by it. By bringing light to this topic, you have shown us all the power that we have when it comes to the governance of our own motherland. Once again, thank you very much, sir. And now we will be opening the floor for the participants to unmute and ask the speaker a few questions. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hands and we will elaborate your question.
You may put any questions in the chat box also, if there are difficulties unmuting and speaking. Seems like they are okay.
Seems like, sir, everything was clear to everyone. So on that note, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Gimhan for taking your precious time out of your day to enlighten us regarding these important aspects when it comes to politics. Speaking for everyone here, I can confidently say that each and everyone here did learn something new regarding Sri Lanka and regarding politics, basically, from this webinar. Once again, we would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for taking your time out of the day and basically teaching us regarding these important topics in life. We would also like to thank the Interact Week chairperson, Interactor Daliaki, for joining and giving us her time. And we would also like to thank the dignitaries from the Interact District Council. And finally, we would like to thank all the interactors and participants who joined and took time out of their day to listen to this webinar, listen to this very educational webinar. And we hope that you all learned something new from this session. Thank you.